Hey everyone, today I would like to show you 10 mistakes you may be making when it comes to capturing drone footage and how to fix them so that you can instantly get better looking and more professional videos from your drone. We will first look at examples of each mistake so that you know what to avoid and then what you should do instead to see a big improvement to the quality of your drone footage. Let's jump right in. Now, if you're new around here, welcome, my name's Matthew, and I make videos helping you get the most from your drones, action cameras, gimbals, and more. Everything from the best settings to get up and running quickly to tips and tricks to help get more cinematic videos and better looking images from your gear. So if you would like to see more of that, then please consider subscribing by clicking that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. Okay, let's get the drone in the air and take a look at the first mistake you might be making and how to fix it so you can get better videos from your drone. And the first mistake you might be making is being able to see you flying the drone in your clips. The reason you don't want to be able to see yourself flying the drone in your clips is because it breaks the immersion to your viewer. Instead of their attention being on the beautiful landscape you're capturing or the awesome point of interest, they get distracted by being able to see you flying the drone in the corner of your clip, for example. Now this can happen in two ways. Firstly, you might be so distracted by trying to get the perfect composition, trying to frame up your subject perfectly, that you forget to check if you are in the corner of the clip. You start recording, and only after you have viewed the clip on a bigger screen when you get home did you realize that you could actually see yourself in the corner of the frame. Or what's more likely to happen is, before you start recording, you check to see if you are in the frame. You're not, that's great. You hit record, you start to do a drone move around your point of interest, but because you're concentrating so hard on doing the perfect drone move, the smoothest orbit, making sure your point of interest stays centered, all the things you need to keep track of when you're recording a drone video, you forget to notice that you have just drifted into the frame. And again, this is just going to distract your viewer because they may be looking at the point of interest, but then once you pop into the corner of the shot, their eyes, their attention is going to be drawn to you flying the drone instead. Now the fix to this is very simple. Before you start recording, you just want to make sure that you're not in the frame. And then as you're recording, as you're doing a drone move around your subject or point of interest, again, just keep an eye on the corners of the screen to make sure at all times you're not coming into view. Moving on to the second mistake, and that is having the controller visible while doing a tracking shot. I've seen so many clips online where people are capturing footage of themselves hiking, adventuring in all these awesome scenic locations, but the drone footage is of them walking along with the controller in front of them and they're just staring at the screen. Now, you might be doing this because you want to make sure that the drone is tracking you okay. Again, you want to make sure that the drone is framing you up in your landscapes and locations okay, but it just looks completely unnatural. And again, it breaks that immersion to the viewer because you're doing something unnatural. Instead of having drone footage of yourself hiking or walking along that location, the footage is of you walking along staring at a controller, so you want to be able to hide the controller as the drone tracks you, and I have a few tips to help you do that. If you are by yourself, something you can do while the drone is tracking you is simply put the controller down by your side. And you want to put it down to the side that's away from the drone. So if the drone is tracking you to your left side, put the controller down to your right side. And then as the drone tracks along beside you, the controller will be more or less out of view. Now, it won't be completely out of view, but it will get you 90% of the way there and will help to not break that immersion as what would happen if you were staring at the controller while walking. Another easy way to get around this is if you have a friend with you, once you start the tracking, simply give them the controller so they can keep an eye on the controller, keep an eye on the screen and make sure the drone is tracking you okay. And then you are free to walk or hike along your location without having to hide the controller because your friend is holding it instead. Now, if you're looking to create high quality drone videos, then something that is very, very important is using music and sound effects. Simply take a look at this before and after. Huge difference, right? But where can you find top-notch safe to use and copyright-free music and sound effects for your drone videos? Well, for that, I personally use and recommend today's video sponsor, which is Epidemic Sound. With an impressive library boasting over 40,000 tracks across various genres and playlists, Epidemic Sound makes it a breeze to discover that perfect sound. Need the soothing sounds of waves or the roar of a waterfall? Their collection of 90,000 diverse sound effects has got you covered. Importantly, Epidemic Sound also owns 100% of their music and sound effects. And because they are royalty free, you can confidently use them in your projects, even when uploading to platforms like Instagram or YouTube. They also have an exciting new game-changing feature called the Sound Match tool. If you have ever spent hours, like me, searching for the ideal track, Sound Match is your new best friend and massively speeds up the process by suggesting the perfect song for your drone video in literally a matter of seconds. All you have to do is upload your video to it, and it quickly analyzes the tone, mood and rhythm, offering you music recommendations that takes your video to the next level. And it has saved me so much time when finding music for my drone video projects. If you would like to give Epidemic Sound and the new Sound Match tool a try, then I have some very exciting news. This year I have teamed up with Epidemic Sound to bring you an exclusive Cyber Week deal on their music service, where you can get access to 2 months of free music and sounds by simply clicking my link down below. This discount is valid for the personal plan, and the offer will be available for 5 days only. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on this incredible once a year offer and the diverse music catalogue of Epidemic Sound, then be sure to click the link down below in this video description today. The next mistake I see new pilots make all the time when capturing drone footage is hitting record, letting the drone hover in place for a few seconds, then making a massive sudden movement in the direction of their landscape, and then when they stop recording, they simply upload that footage online. So the clip you see online has that drone hovering for a few seconds and then having this incredibly jarring, sudden, jerky movement. And this just does not look professional or cinematic in any way. But it's really easy to fix. The first way you can fix this is by starting your drone movement first, then hitting record once the drone movement has started. Now, as a top tip, if you're going to do this, I recommend that you start recording the footage by using the record button on the back of the controller rather than the record button on the controller screen. Because if you stop to press the record button on the controller screen while you're already doing a drone movement on the joysticks, this is just going to add jerkiness to your footage because you're not going to be able to hold them joysticks smoothly as you then try to press that record button. Instead, it's super easy to press that record button on the back of the controller while you're making a movement on the joysticks of the controller and still get one nice smooth cinematic movement. Now, if you find that difficult to do, then the second way to do this and the easier way to do this is to hit record first. You can let your drone hover for a few seconds, then simply do the drone movement you wish. So again, I'm going to do a push forward, rise up over this small ruined building. And once I'm happy with this clip, I'm going to stop the recording. Then when you bring your clip into your favorite video editor, you want to trim the clip right up until the point where your drone starts to do the drone movement, so that you don't have a portion of the video where the drone is stationary and a portion of the video where the drone suddenly goes in to this rapid drone movement. Instead, from the start of the clip to the end of the clip, you get one nice, smooth, consistent movement, and this is just going to look so much more professional. The next mistake you might be making, and the one I was most guilty of when I first started flying a drone, is hitting record and flying around randomly, and specifically capturing footage with no plan. So you might hit record, see this little old ruined building, think, okay, I'll get a nice orbit off that building. So you start doing this orbit, which looks really nice. But then as you orbit the drone around you, you see this other little building in the background saying, oh, I'm going to do a push forward towards it. As you're pushing forward, you might think, I'm going to get lower, raise the gimbal up to get the landscape in the background. Then when you get to this little building, you might think, oh, I'm going to get a top down of this. So you put the drone high in the air and you're recording the entire time. Then once you get that top down, you might think, oh, that beach area looks nice. Let's get a shot of that beach area. And I'm just going to push along, following the edge of the coast. Then you might think, okay, another top down here would be nice. Actually, I'm going to do a top down descend. So you start doing a top down descend, and then you stop recording. But when you view this back, this is just going to look like a jumbled mess with absolutely no focus, and it's not going to look cinematic or professional. So how do we fix this? Well, I have a really simple phrase, a really simple rule that I stick to every single time I'm out flying to make sure this doesn't happen. And that is, you want to pick one movement and one point of interest for each clip. So let's take a look at that in practice. So for my first clip, I'm going to capture this little old ruined building, and I'm going to do an orbit. So I'm going to hit record. I'm going to start doing an orbit around this point of interest. And a top tip is to record for slightly longer than you think you need. So if you think you only need a 5 to 10 second clip, then I recommend recording for slightly longer than that. It just gives you more flexibility when editing in post. If there was a section at the start or end of the clip you didn't like, then having that extra recording time just gives you flexibility to trim out them bad parts. So that's my first clip captured. So for my second clip, I'm going to get a top-down descend off this second old ruined building. So I put my drone in position high above it, and remember, you want to stick to one drone move and one point of interest for each clip. So in this case, it's this second old ruined building, and for my drone move, I'm going to do a top-down descend. So I'm going to hit record, and I want to slowly lower the drone down towards it. Again, I recommend nice, slow, subtle movement if you want your clips to be nice and cinematic. So that looks perfect. I'm going to stop recording, and now I'm going to capture a third clip. So in this case, my third point of interest is this coastal landscape, and my drone move is going to be a push forward. So I'm going to hit record, and I'm simply going to start flying forward to capture this beautiful landscape. Now, let's put them 3 clips together and see the final results. The next mistake you might be making, and again I was guilty of when I first started flying a drone, is capturing the same type of clip over and over again. Even if you're capturing lots of different points of interest, if you always do the same move or capture the same vantage point, your clips can look very samey and very similar, and this will just lead to you getting boring looking drone sequences. So if you take a look at these examples, these are all different points of interest, but because I captured from the top down vantage point every time, all the clips look very similar and very samey. So to fix this, what you want to do is try to capture a different move or capture from a different vantage point for each subsequent clip that you record. So every time you stop recording and start capturing a new clip, make sure to move your drone into a different vantage point than before. So if your drone was up high, then try to get it down low. If your gimbal was pointed straight down, getting a top down, then point it towards the horizon. And if you do this every single time you hit record, this means that you will come away from your location with lots of varied clips that you can use when editing your sequences. Moving on to the next mistake you may be making when capturing drone footage, and that is doing hard rotations. But this one is super simple to fix, and it can make a dramatic improvement to the quality of your drone footage. So as you're recording a location or point of interest, you may be trying to keep your point of interest centered. But the way you're doing it is by making these hard rotations on the joysticks, and this results in very jerky movement, and this obviously does not look very good. So I have 2 things you will want to keep in mind to help prevent this from happening. Firstly, as you record a clip, do not change direction. So if you have started rotating the drone round left as you're recording, do not then suddenly move right and then suddenly move left again and then move right again. Instead, once you start rotating the drone in a certain direction, in this case I'm rotating it left, then you will want to keep rotating the drone left. You don't want to then all of a sudden move and start rotating the drone right. Once you have committed to one direction as you're recording, you want to continue moving the drone in that direction until you then stop recording. Second, you want to be very gentle on the joysticks as you move it away from the center point. Don't think of the joysticks as an on-off button. You don't want to push the joystick all the way to the left or all the way to the right when you want to make a turn. Instead, you want to slowly move it away from the center point until you get the speed of the rotation that you desire, and then hold your fingers or thumbs in that position and don't move them, so you get one nice consistent rotation with your drone, and this will just look so much better. Now, something else that you want to avoid is using the controller screen to move the gimbal. So if you press and hold on the controller screen and drag your finger downwards or drag your finger upwards, you can actually move the gimbal up and down, but I do not recommend doing this. Firstly, if you're doing a drone move and you've got your thumbs or fingers on the joysticks and you're moving the drone around, then it's going to be hard to do that while touching the controller screen to move the gimbal, and this is going to result in jerky gimbal movement. But also, if you're using your finger on the controller screen, it's quite hard to move that gimbal in a smooth way. I find 9 times out of 10, you're going to get jerky gimbal movement. Instead, you want to use the scroll wheel on the back of the controller. Now, something else you want to watch out for is having your gimbal speed set too fast for your own personal preferences. So you might already be using the scroll wheel in the back of the controller, but you find that gimbal movement is just too fast. You can never seem to get a nice, slow cinematic movement. Every time you move that scroll wheel, it's moving up too quick or moving down too quick. Well, you can actually go into the settings and decrease the speed of the gimbal to make this much easier to control. Now, to do this, you want to go to your settings menu by tapping the 3 dots in the top right of the controller screen, pressing the control subheading, and scrolling down to the gain and expo tuning setting. Now you want to select the flight mode that you want to adjust the gimbal speed for. So in this case, I'm going to select normal. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, under the gimbal subheading, you will see max control speed. Now, if you increase this value, so I'm going to increase it all the way up and I go back to the main screen, when I now move this gimbal, you can see it's moving incredibly fast. But if I go back to that setting and I decrease this all the way down to a lower number, let's just say 5, and go back, now when I use that scroll wheel, you can see I'm getting a much slower movement. So if you're struggling to move that gimbal slowly and smoothly, I recommend going into that setting and decreasing the max control speed value, and then you will find it much easier to control that gimbal and therefore get smoother movement whenever you're doing moves that require you to use that gimbal. Now, one of the easiest mistakes to make as a beginner, especially if you don't know what all the settings do, maybe you're playing about in manual mode, is to over or underexpose your images. So an overexposed video is where the image is too bright. You might see a completely white sky with no detail, or you might just find that your image looks very whitewashed. It's very bright in general. That's an overexposed image. An underexposed image, on the other hand, is where everything is too dark. So what you might see is that your foreground becomes quite muddy. A lot of the detail or points of interest in your foreground are getting lost because it's just too dark. And if you over or underexpose your images, especially if you're using the normal color profile, this can be nearly impossible to fix in your video editor after the fact. So you want to make sure you don't do this. And I have 2 settings I recommend turning on, which can help you prevent this from happening. The first is called overexposure warning. So if I go to the settings menu and under the camera heading, scroll down and turn on the overexposure warning setting, what this will do is it will overlay zebras over any area of the image which is overexposed. So if I overexpose this image again, you can see that these zebras start to appear over the sky. And this is giving you a visual indicator that this area of the image is overexposed and it's just going to look completely white. So now what I can do is I can lower the exposure by lowering the exposure compensation value until nearly all of them zebras disappear, and now I know I won't have an overexposed image. The second setting I recommend turning on, if I go back to the settings menu, is the histogram. Now when you turn this on and go back to the controller screen, you will see this new graph appear on the screen, and you can press on this and move it to wherever you like. Now this graph is showing you the exposure of the image, and simply put, you want the majority of the graph to be in the center. If the graph is crushed all the way to the left, this is showing you that the image is underexposed, and you will want to increase the exposure. If the graph is crushed all the way to the right, this is an indicator that the image is overexposed. So you will want to lower the exposure till the graph comes back towards the center. And once the majority of the graph is in the center, you will know you have a properly exposed image. So there you have it. 10 beginner drone mistakes you may be making and how to fix them. And hopefully these tips will help you get improved and better looking drone footage from your drone. Now, before you go, if you liked this video and you learned something new, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones, action cameras, gimbals and more, then I recommend you check out my channel where I have a ton of other content to help you get better results with your camera gear. If you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos, then I recommend you click that subscribe button down below, and when you're down there, make sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. And if you want to stick around and watch a few more videos now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.